Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well and doing great. My name is Deepak. I have 15 plus years of experience in this field, and today we are going to talk about the project management PMP and the certification related stuff. So we're going to talk about what exactly is a project, the history of project management. So in order to understand everything, you have to understand the history behind it. So that's why we are going to talk about history behind the project management. Why do organizations need project management? What exactly is a PM, which is a project manager, certain tools, life cycle, and the principle behind it. So let's start with a basic thing. Let's first of all, let's talk about what exactly is a project. So before we talk about the other thing, you have to really understand what exactly the project is. So if I say, before I start with the project part, let me just explain you about PMI. So what exactly the PMI is. So PMI defines the project as a temporary endeavor. So if you want to create any kind of project, you have to understand the requirements in detail. So let me even just take you that slide as well, so that if some of you are interested in reading, you can read as well. So this PMI basically is they define the strategy, they define the technique based on which you can define a project. So one of the use case I will tell you about having a project. For example, I want to develop anything like I want to develop any solution for the organization. It can be technical, it can be non-technical. I cannot go live with that solution directly, because if your solution, if your project has different components, and without planning it properly, if I'm going to start implementing it, and later on after a couple of months I realize that, oh, I missed that component, but I will not be able to make those changes. I had to redo entire thing, and to redo entire thing, it will require a lot of money, manpower, so it's going to be wastage of my resources and my money as well. So that's why you have to do a proper planning. You have to understand the proper requirement, like what exactly the requirement is. You have to understand the project that you are going to work on, it's going to be technically feasible or not. If it is not going to be technical feasible, then what you have to do, how you can make it feasible. Along with that, this is something lies when your budget or not. So that's the entire scope. You are going to have an end-to-end life cycle wherein you will be able to understand how the project flows, basically what are the different components of it you are going to define, so that you have a proper strategy defined. Now there are different characteristics for the project. So the characteristics wherein you are going to define, like I said, the start and the end point. You are going to define the strategy, the technique, the way based on which your project is going to work. I'm going to start define, like my start point of the project is, I'm going to have the case study that the project, the product that I'm going to work on, that I'm going to develop, has someone else worked in the past. If yes, then I'm going to do a case study, like what exactly they have done, how differently I can bring it out. And in the end point, you're going to decide how your end solution is going to look like. So the same thing, once you have decided that what is going to be your start phase, end phase, now you can think on the implementation. What are different things you have to keep in mind while working on that project, like how much resources you require, how much tools you require. So all those kind of things are taken care in the project characteristics, wherein you are going to define all those things. Now let's talk about some of the project constraints, like what kind of constraints you can have on the project. We're going to talk about each of the constraints one by one. So one of the biggest constraint that we have is a cost, right? If I don't have that budget, like if I want to develop something, I want to build something, if I don't have that budget, then in that case, I will not be able to build the project. Let's say I got a project from other company for whom I have to build, and they are giving me, let's say, $1,000, but I realize that I have to spend $2,000. It's going to be a problem. Or in-house within my organization as well, I had to develop something. Maybe I had to implement. I had to think about a solution for other company or a group of company. If I don't have that much budget, then in that case, I will not be able to go ahead with that. So we have to decide and rethink in certain cases that how we can make a project as a cost effective. The scope. The scope basically means that who is going to use it. It's going to be used by the end customers, users. What exactly the scope of the project is, and the quality. You have to make sure that if you are minimizing the cost, it's not degrading the quality. The quality has to be very good. And what are the risk analysis? You have to perform the risk analysis. What can be the risk on your project in terms of cost, security, and all those kind of things. Other thing is the resources. You have to think of what all resources you need. Like I said in the beginning, the people, the tools, the manpower, everything is going to be taken care of in the resources, and the time, the timeline which is required to build the project. Now that these are the project constraints that we can have, and the same thing basically is demonstrated in the next slide. So in this case, you have the cost, scope, and the time. So the scope, if your scope is limited, then in that case, of course, it's going to lie within your budget and within your schedule. If you are changing the scope, then in that case, your cost and the time is going to be changed. So you have to make sure that all these things are in proportional to each other. If you're going to make a change in the one component, it's going to make the change in the other components. Now let's talk about the area of expertise, like what are the different people which is going to be required to build any kind of project. So you are going to require the people who can have a good interpersonal skill, who can communicate with other people, other stakeholders, because in order to develop anything, you cannot be a one person army. I mean, you require other people for that. So the person should have good interpersonal skill, good, should have management knowledge. A good manager is the one who can take work from anyone. Sometimes it may happen that the people who are reporting to you, they have some conflicts. You have to be the one who can resolve those conflicts, and you can take maximum output from them. You should have the proper understanding of the project environment, that what exactly the environment of the project is going to look like, what all tools you need, what all technologies you have to bring in, all those kind of things. And the application knowledge, the standards and regulation is very much required, because if you're going to build something which requires certain permissions from certain regulatories, you have to make sure that it's being there. Now what we're going to do is we are going to talk about each of these component in detail one by one, so that you have a proper understanding. So let's start with the very first one, which is understanding the project requirement, wherein that's something we already talked about. So in terms of project requirement, it's going to be basically, it can be related to the cultural, social, international, physical, it can be anything. So you have to understand the requirement basically, and based on that, you are going to design and define the solution. Now, the next one is the interpersonal skill. So interpersonal skill basically means, like I said, how you communicate with people. You have to communicate with, let's say, the users, end users, customers, leadership team. You have that ability wherein you can interact with everyone, even though if you have not worked on that component, you will be able to present that component to them. Now let's talk about the other thing, which is a history of project management. In order to work on anything, that I always recommend to everyone, that on whatever the components you are going to work on, you should know the history behind it. It should not be like that you don't know the history and you're directly working. So let's talk about a little bit about the history of the project management. What is the history behind it, and how basically we evolved in everything, in every world basically we evolved. So let's take a look how exactly we evolved. So in 2570 BC, so there was a when this pyramid was implemented, it used the same concept, wherein we we would not had that much tools available at that time, but with just a mind, on a pen and a paper, we designed the architecture, how it's going to build, like how the end solution is going to look like. Likewise, then after that, whenever we build any kind of solution, whether it was a dam, whether it was any kind of technical solution, non-technical solution, it was a building, we started using the same concept. Now using see in this case, like in 1917, the Gantt chart was developed by Henry Gantt. In 1931, we use the same concept, wherein we build the entire project. We decided what all components are going to be there, like how many bricks you are going to require, how many the small components, wherein like the screws, the metal, the cement, all those kind of things we decided. So we had a proper planning. It was not like that out of the blue we just combined all the components, and on ad hoc basis we were accumulating those components. Now if I'm a contractor, I got this project, I have to know first of all that what is going to be the cost of the project, the cost of the components, and how much profit I'm going to make. Otherwise, if I'm going to get the project directly without having proper analysis, I realized that okay, the cost on the project is going to be $15,000, but if I'm getting $10,000, I have to pay from my pocket. I cannot take a back step. Even though if I'm going to leave the project in between, it's going to be a bad thing for me. in the industry. So I cannot leave that thing. So all this kind of different projects were evolved after the concept of pyramid project, wherein we defined that how many components are going to be required, how the integration of components are going to be there, how much manpower is going to be required. After proper analysis, we moved on with different components, and then we realized that for all the different components we can have a similar kind of solution. Likewise, we just keep on evolving, wherein we had different projects, wherein we just kept on upgrading ourselves with different things. And one more thing, even after that, later on certain compliance and regulatory bodies jumped in. So if you are an organization which requires certain compliance to get any kind of project from a different organization, there were different compliance which was like ISO 21500, which basically provides the guidance on project management, which was introduced in 2012. Later on, likewise, so many compliance were introduced. So similar thing is there, like in 2021, the seventh edition of PM book guide was released. You can follow these books which contains a certain guidelines. And for ISO, it was introduced in 2012. Again, guys, if you're going to enroll for the course, we are going to cover each and everything in detail, but in webinar we have a limited time, so that's why we just focus on the glimpse of it. Also, you are going to get a certification to attend this entire webinar of today. So now let's talk about why project management, why exactly we have a need to have a project management. The very first component or very first need is increased collaboration. With the help of project management, we can collaborate different people. It's not like that everyone is working individually. You have to work in a team. Now you must have heard about that term, that if you are going to combine all sticks together, it will be very difficult for you to break the stick. But if you are going to isolate all the stick, it will be very easy for you to break all those stick. So teamwork is always very much beneficial, wherein if you are working on one component, other person can work on other component. Maybe you have knowledge in one component, the other person can have knowledge in second component. So instead of everyone researching on different components, you can just work as a team together, and people can work on it directly. Next one is effective project planning, wherein what I can do is I realize, okay, my project has 10 different components. I can uh, first of all prioritize that which component I have to work on, and I can distribute all those components to different people. Next one is standardized way of working, wherein all the people can share their ideas. For example, I am working on one component, wherein I know that my colleague is working on second component, and on that component I worked in the past. So I can share my thoughts, my ideas, I can help my colleague, and later in the different projects, he can help me as well. So you have a standardized way of working. Next one is successful change management, wherein any kind of change, any kind of changes, once you're going to make in your project, once it is deployed, once it is implemented, it has to go via the change management, so that you can know where you were earlier, now where you are. Basically, in other words, you create a baseline in the beginning, that just which basically helps you to find the deviation, like where you were earlier and where you are. Next one is a better risk management. You can understand, you can basically perform the weightage, that what kind of risk you're going to have on different components in terms of technical or non-technical components. And next one is basically the improved quality, which basically improve the quality of your entire product or the project. Because if you're going to make the project management associated in the beginning, it's going to improve the quality, because you're going to have the proper collaboration within the team. People are working together with each other, so eventually it's going to build a quality product. Next one basically is the improved reputation. Now in that's again a little bit self-explanatory. Now if I'm going to build a project which can be used by different people, different team members, then in that case it's going to be a quality product. So all the people in the market who are going to use my product, they are going to have the good quality product. So eventually it's going to increase my reputation of my organization. Now next one that we have is a leadership, wherein which means that you can just build the hierarchy. Like if I am at level 1, if I am a tier 1, I'm going to do those things which is being informed by my boss, who is at level 2 or tier 2. The third person who is at tier 3, he is going to guide the person who is at tier 2. So now different level people are going to work together as per their level and role defined, and they are going to share their thoughts from their ideas. Now the CEO of the organization, he has experience of 40 years, he's going to share those ideas with let's say the VP is going to share the ideas with director with manager. So it's going to be like a brainstorming session wherein everyone is going to share the ideas with their experience. So at the end, the product that you're going to get, the project which is going to be developed, it's going to be a refined product. And the last one is a new organization capabilities, wherein now you're going to work together. You will be able to understand each other. There's going to have a great team collaboration, great communication between the team, and at the end, you will be able to understand each other in a better way, and you will be able to take most out of it. Like for everyone, you will be able to get maximum output. Now let's come to the point. What exactly? Now you got a fair understanding about the use cases, the history, and everything. Now let's talk about who is the project manager. So project manager basically is a person who is basically help you in developing a quality product for your organization, and who can define the different role for different people in the group, and who can basically help you in refining your end product so that it looks great. Now, who is a project manager? Project manager basically is the one who basically motivate your stakeholders, who basically make sure that you have the integrity in your product, as well as they are able to work in the gray, which basically means that there are certain pieces which are left behind. They can fill those gaps to make those pieces more stable, and they can define the business strategy so that the end goal of your organization, which is to have good revenue and good name and fame, can be achieved easily with a good product that you have basically created. Now let's talk about a couple of different project management tools which are available in the market. So you have basically real-time dashboards with the help of various tools which are basically available with the market. Everyone needs a proper dashboard, so that wherein you can just realize that okay, where you were earlier, where you have to go. Like I'm going to define my baseline, like where I was earlier and where I want to go. So all those kind of things can be easily achieved and easily be tracked with the real dashboard, which is going to show you the real progress on it. Along with that, there can be other tools that can be used, like online Gantt charts, wherein you want to see the progress. Like in that, like for example, in 2016, my progress was this. I completed task in this much time. In 2017, I completed my task in this much time, or my task will take how much time, that I can also evaluate with this. Other is a task management, wherein I can just prioritize the different tasks, and I can just give the weightage that which task should be done first and which task should be done second. Next is the timesheet. Now whatever the amount of effort your resources are spending now in the organization, now which is a big trend, even though you are a full-time employee, you are going to have a fixed shift time, but here you are still having the concept of timesheet, wherein the organization can see that how much hours you are spending, how much hours of effort is being spent on a specific project. So even though you're working overtime as well, in that case, it can be easily evaluated, and you can be rewarded as well later on in when it comes to your performance and everything. Now, coming to the PMLC, which is known as Project Management Lifecycle. So it basically defines that how effectively and efficiently your project can be developed and designed. So it has basically four phases. One is the initiating, which means that initialization. Second is planning. Third is execution. Fourth is closure. Now let's talk about each of this component a little bit one by one. So basically initiating means that you are going to initiate something, you are going to start something, wherein you are going to start working on the project, wherein you are going to decide that the project is technically feasible or not, and from business perspective that is feasible or not to develop. Second is the planning, wherein you are going to perform a proper planning of the component, that what are different components which are required, and how you're going to work in collaboration with the different components. Third is the execution, which is the implementation. You're going to run your project, where you're going to implement your project directly. And last one is closure, where you're going to complete the entire project. So these are the four phases of your PMLC, project management lifecycle. And coming to the part, the project management principles that you have. So you have all these principles, basically stewardship, which means that you are going to whenever all the people, all the different team members who are going to work together, they are going to build a project, build a product, basically respectfully. Even though you are at a lower level, you are at a higher level, you are going to respect each other. You are going to take care of other people as well. For example, if someone is saying that he cannot work on that component, but he can efficiently work on the other component which is assigned to a different team member, then he can work together in collaboration with someone else. So it's all about you are diligently, respectfully respecting the views, and trying to make most output of the people. Next is a team, which means that you are going to make sure that people are working together in a team. It's not like that people are working in an isolated way, or people are not thinking that I got this project, I'm going to get the maximum visibility. It should not be like that people are trying to bring each other down. You have to make sure that people are respecting each other views as well as they are working as a team. Now next one is a stakeholders, which means that once you are going to work on your project. Now I have defined my project in 7 modules. After a specific moment, a specific mile, I'm going to define the miles that at first mile I'm going to perform a alpha testing, beta testing, wherein I'm going to perform a testing before I'm going to present to the customer. So I can bring the stakeholders in, wherein they can see the progress of my project, and they can share their views on that. Value basically means focus on the value, means you have to focus on the quality. It should not be like that I'm just trying to build this project in the earlier phases so that people are thinking that I did a good job, but eventually I'm leaving some loose ends, which can be basically an issue with the entire project. Next one is the holistic thinking, which means that you are going to recognize what are the different components you can embed in. Now I realized in while working on my project that I can make things a little bit better. I can, in terms of appearance, experience, I can make things better, like thinking out of the box. So whatever the kind of new thoughts I'm going to have, I'm going to make those changes based on new thoughts. Plus, I'm going to have a baseline which I created in the beginning, so I will be able to know that where I started, what kind of deviations I have made. So if I had to roll back to the previous stage, I can do it easily. Next one is a leadership, wherein the leaders should basically motivate, coach the other people within their team, and people can learn from their experience. Now, the next one that we basically have is the tailoring, which means that you are going to tailor your delivery approach based on the context. And next one is basically the quality, wherein you are going to build the quality product after the thorough testing, because you have your stakeholders involved as well. So the end product you are going to get is a quality product. And the complexity, which means that you should have less complexity if the product is very complex, and for the end users it's very difficult to understand. There's no use of having a product, so you have to make sure that the product is very less complex. All the different components are very less complex and complicated. Next one is opportunities and threat, which means that you have to basically figure out what can be the different threats, different bugs, vulnerabilities. You have to address those things before you go live. And the next one is adaptability and resilience, which means that your product has to be adaptable in different environment, which can work in different environment, and it has to be resilient, which basically means that it has to be available in the unforced circumstances as well. And the last one is the change management, which means that if you're going to make any kind of changes in the future, which every project has to, so you are going to address those changes, and you can again check that what was your baseline and how much you have deviated from your baseline. Next one basically is the performance domain. So basically is a team. If your team is working in collaboration with each other, then your end project that you're going to develop, you're going to create, the project is going to be a greater project, which can be used by different people in the market, because people have worked together to build a project, so you are going to have a quality project. Next one that you have is a stakeholder. So you're going to loop in your stakeholders all the time in between, so that you can get their feedback as per the project, and the customization can be done as per their needs. Next one is a life cycle, wherein you are going to work together with each other, wherein you are going to achieve a mile, I would say, ahead of our time, if all the people are working together. Because if people are working in isolated with each other, then it's going to take more time. Next one is a planning, wherein you are going to have a proper planning of your project before you are going to uh, start implementing it. And the next one is a navigating uncertainty and ambiguity, wherein you're going to see that what can be the bugs, what can be the loose components of your project, and you can just fill those gaps. And last one is a delivery, wherein once these things are identified, you're going to deliver to the customer so that he can take care of it. After that, you can evaluate the performance, that how effectively and efficiently the project has been developed. And the last one is the project work, wherein after that you have to basically perform the ongoing maintenance. You can make the changes, followed by the baseline. You can just see that how much you are deviating from the baseline. So I hope you guys have really enjoyed the today's session. You have learned a lot and it was beneficial. Again, guys, thank you once again, and wishing you a great day ahead. Stay safe in this COVID pandemic. Bye bye.